OTB AM.
OTBsports.com leads with John Giles on John Joe Shelby. It was the best display I've seen from a midfielder this season. He's a big fan of Shelby. You've also got Sour Jose Mourinho taking aim at Conservative Bournemouth and VAR. You've got Padraig Harrington talking about Bryson DeChambeau. It is going to change golf, he says. And you can also watch Tottenham slumping to a goalless snooze fest at Bournemouth. That is OTBsports.com this morning. The
Irish Independent for you this morning is absolutely jam-packed, full of stuff today, which is great. Colin Keys with the story that I hadn't seen elsewhere. Two Cork teams suspend activity after potential COVID contact. Two players from West Cork clubs were in contact, it seems, with someone who tested positive. So all activity, Colin Keys writes, is suspended there now at those clubs until those players are tested and the results are returned. Both teams, it seems, were also involved with games against in challenge matches. So those teams as well have taken what are described here as precautionary measures until the picture is a bit clearer. And I'm not really that sure either what those precautionary measures are or what the best advice is if you are a team that's played against somebody who's, I guess, a team who is somebody who is then getting tested for coronavirus. What exactly is the recommendation about how you should behave or contact people, etc., etc., etc. So that may end up being a bit of a test case for all of this, but that is the latest developments in that one, and we shall see how it pans out, because it might have major implications, obviously, for stuff that's coming down the line in relation to both the club game that's due to get underway any week now, and also then the inter-county stuff to follow a bit later in the year. So it's the latest wrinkle. I don't know if a saga is quite the way to put it, but certainly the latest wrinkle in that story. Rory O'Connor writes about a bumper window of international rugby upcoming from October 24th to December the 5th. Ireland will close out the remaining couple of Six Nations matches, Italy and France games, as part of a 7-week run of games, which is going to include an 8-team mini tournament, he writes, with the Six Nations teams as well as Fiji and Japan. Which I'm sort of scratching my head as to why the hell they bother doing that. Like, they'll have literally just finished the Six Nations, and then they're going to rerun off another version of it that might be, I don't know, is it a test case for actually including both of those countries going forward? Odd timing, I think. But look, we'll see. And I'm not really going to complain about a 7-week bumper run of international rugby, to be honest. So we'll see how that goes. And also the Heineken Cup has made the sensible decision, I think, to decide that the final for the tournament this year, the location for the final this year will only be decided once the finalists are known. So it means effectively that Marseille is now out of the running. That'll be back for 2021. And whoever the two teams in the final are, they'll do some sort of a jiggery-pokery to decide that it will end up in, I'm assuming, one of those teams' cities. James Corrigan writes about Tigers' return from Memorial next week. It's his first tour appearance for 5 months, and the main shot there of Leeds on the march. Promotion weighed almost over. 5-0 win over Stoke last night. They're 6 points clear of third place and only 4 games to go.
The Irish Examiner this morning leads with match report from Old Trafford last night, or from Villa Park, I should say. Aston Villa 0, United 3, Champions League spot within sight for United. An interesting one here as well. Ryan injured foot training with club, not Wexford. So Liam Ryan's club have had to come out and say that he got injured with his club while not training with the county, because there were naturally rumours abounding when he got injured, and people have been saying.
Well, his manager came out and sort of half hinted, didn't he? He sort of half said that he used the word "trip" with the county, "trip," without fully finishing that. Wasn't that it?
Yeah, well, the club chairman, Michael Doyle, has he's come out today, so that's the latest quote that the Irish Examiner have said. Liam was training below in the club. I was speaking to the lads involved with the team last Monday night, and they said as soon as he went down, they knew something was serious, because Liam wouldn't lie down too easily. But he stayed down, made no attempt to get back up, and they knew it was serious, and it turned out he had a broken bone in the foot. So you had Padge Walsh is the interview that you're referring to. He's addressed that here as well. I didn't see the interview that Skinner did, that's his nickname, but he obviously made a remark that was in the heat of the moment. The fact is Liam was injured in training for Rapparees, getting ready for the Shells match. That's where it started, and that's where it finished. Our biggest worry is that he'll miss the first couple of games. Hopefully we might have him back later and we are able to get through those games. It's
an awful time to have a misspeak, isn't it? Like,
doing something with the county team or something was the line he said.
The lads played on the news round last night, and he said "tre" and then stopped and said doing something with the county team. So, like, I don't know why you would say that if you had literally seen the guy in your own training session. It's bizarre.
In fairness, the Wexford County Board have come out to dismiss that, and now the club chairman has come out to dismiss that. So that's what they've said about the issue and the injury to Liam Ryan. But it's an interesting one. Probably not going to be the last of these sort of stories we see over the next few weeks. The other couple of things in the Examiner then are just match reports from last night. Michael O'Neill in awe as Leeds take giant step, and Mourinho fuming as sorry Spurs denied penalty.
The Times of London, the Irish edition here, Martin Ziegler and Martin Hardy writing the fans are coming back to football in the UK. The aim is that grounds there are going to be between 30 and 50% full, and they're going to get back in for the start of the new season, which looks like it'll be the middle of September. And it looks like a plan indeed actually for all sport, and a plan that the government are very much behind. As long as social distancing can be allowed, masks must be worn. I'm absolutely certain there'll be other facets to that. There'll be other recommendations. It's been long spoken about having temperature testing at grounds as well, which is a very easy thing to do. You see it at sort of most mass gatherings. It is obviously something that the GA have decided, as they say, on medical advice, is not an area they want to go on, but most other sporting organisations and outside of sport as well do seem to be headed that way. So, but anyway, sport is coming back 30-50% start of the season. We'll see how that pans out. That's in the UK, of course. Paul Joyce writes about Jordan Henderson's long injury layoff. Klopp saying that he could miss the start of the season. So I don't know, does that cement his position as player of the year now that he doesn't get to disprove it before the end of the season? And Elizabeth Amon tells the story of the West Indies turning the screw on England in the first test of their series. Jason Holder taking 6 for 42, best numbers of his career, and the Windies are flying.
The Irish Times this morning leads with Pogba goal, caps another win for Solskjaer's rampant United. VAR in the spotlight again as Spurs held at Bournemouth. Clinical Leeds stay on track for automatic promotion. And Emmett Malone is writing about Darragh O'Shea, West Brom's star defender, proving his worth at West Brom.
The Star, meanwhile, this morning, the Irish Daily Star, Paul Lennon takes on that main story there in relation to the FAI and the League of Ireland, who were due to implement a series of changes to its rules at an upcoming EGM and AGM, all of which would see the government pay out another 19 million quid in that rescue package, the remainder of it. And the new Minister for Sport has had to write to the FAI top brass to tell them to get a move on, make the changes, get the money in. And then another Fianna Fáil TD, Mark McSharry, is alleging that those at the top of the FAI, he says they're aiming to privatise football in Ireland by stealth. So I'm assuming he's alleging that their inaction in relation to all of this is with a view to farming the administration of the league and the ownership of the league out to someone else, is the allegation there. So we'll see what the FAI top brass have to say in response to that. Bernard O'Neill tells us about that Katie Taylor, Delphine Pursoon rematch, August 22nd. Pog will stay put at United, writes Martin Dunn, after United's thumping of Villa last night, and Pogba starring role in that. And Joe is game for a laugh. Paul Keane reports on some comments by Joe Brolly on BBC Northern Ireland, where he says that the GAA's diktat in relation to county bans and training are a joke, genuinely humorous, says Joe Brolly.
The Irish Mirror this morning leads with Green Party. Marvellous Mason scores for third game on the trot. And I don't blame Royals. Shane Lennon has no grudges against Meath, a decade on from the 2010 Leinster final debacle. It's the 10-year anniversary tomorrow.
The Sun, meanwhile, Dean Smith, the Villa manager, fuming after last night's loss to United, as Graham Bryce writes there. Dean Smith was fuming as Bruno Fernandes won a penalty for jumping on Ezer Conra's leg, which I certainly one take of events there. And Jose fuming as well after Kane was denied a penalty. VAR very much at the firing line this morning. And a tease inside of the thoughts of Babs Keating, who says, punish the rebel counties.
Tell on them reads the back of the Irish Daily Mail. This is former Limerick hurling manager Tom Ryan, who says GAA need anonymous tips to enforce rules, and its privatisation of football in Ireland by stealth. This is comments by Mark McSharry, which we'll come back to in a sec.
The Guardian reports in England against the West Indies, but also a story that I don't see elsewhere from Sean Ingle there. Chris Froome, after 10 years and 7 Grand Tours at Team Sky, who've now become Team Ineos, is leaving. Chris Froome is leaving. He says that he was told that his £5 million contract wasn't going to be renewed, so he signed up for a new team from Israel called Nation. He's 35. He's obviously recovering from what would have appeared to have been a very serious injury last season in a race against time to be fit for the Tour de France next month. Dave Brailsford has indicated to him already he might even make the team Ineos for that Tour de France next month. See how that pans out.
The main story in the Daily Telegraph is of cricket. Stokes anguish. England's new leader comes off second best in battle of the captains with Holder. That is the Telegraph.
The Racing Post, big preview of the jumps at Market Raisin and a preview of the big championship games as well.
And the Herald, no excuses, insists Rock. It's a level playing field, says Dub sharpshooter.
The Irish News, Tyrone not happy that their Ulster opener against Donegal is going to be played at the obviously reduced capacity Ballybuffet. It's a 17,500 capacity that's down to a couple of thousand, writes Brendan Crossan here, in relation to some quotes from Gavin Devlin, who's Mickey Hart's assistant. And wouldn't they all be better off going to Croke Park, where they can take 21,000 with social distancing?
Let's have a look at the OTB Sports app this morning. We've got our feed there from Jose Mourinho to highlights from Spurs, and you can scroll all the way down to Patrick Harrington's quotes on Bryson DeChambeau, which we'll get back to in just a moment. You've got the radio tab there, as you can see, OTB AM live now, and the video tab, which has all our pundits and all our analysis, and the OTB podcast network as well, all covered inside the OTB Sports app. So just search for that, OTB Sports, just search for that in the App Store or in the Google Play Store. Right, coming back to a couple of the stories, Adrian. Will we start with fans and stadiums?
Yeah.
So this is the back of the London Times. Fans to return for new season, writes Martin Ziegler and Martin Hardy. Premier League clubs aiming to have fans back for the start of the next season, with grounds between 30% and 50% full. A couple of little dates and bits of information here as well. The supporters would have to wear face masks. You'd have a situation where the most likely date for the resumption of the Premier League would be September 12th. So they're looking at mid-September as a potential time to actually implement crowds in stadiums, which is interesting if you're projecting all this information and looking at it from an Irish societal point of view. There are a number of concerns, obviously, because of the fact that Cheltenham and that Liverpool versus Atletico match got so much coverage in a very negative way about having big crowds at sporting events, and even the optics of going back with people at sports events may not look great. And some Premier League clubs, which is an interesting detail here, have held talks with companies about providing a medical health passport for supporters. Now, this hasn't been part of the UK government's discussions at all about the return of crowds, but this is something that the Premier League are kind of taking the ball and running with. And then the first step, they say here in the Times, for the return of fans will be pilot events, possibly the Community Shield, or women's events, including England Cricket and Women's Super League. So a lot of this is quite interesting. It seems that sport is going to be leading the way when it comes to bringing big crowds back to UK society, and it's not going to be any different here, you suspect?
Yeah, I think that obviously the Cheltenham and the Liverpool Atletico stuff gets mentioned, but as we would have pointed out ad nauseum at the time, the smarts behind doing stuff like that, we were in such a different position in terms of how informed governments, society, and the experts generally were, and all of this stuff. We were obviously still getting to grips with the enormity about what was coming. We're in a very different place now, and it's probably right that they start to have those conversations now. I think that what we're going to see is, you've already mentioned a couple of them there that are coming from the Premier League in relation to a health passport. There will be a lot of kites flown now, I suspect, over the next few weeks as we get to test the theory. I think that it's a lot to do with that. Let's put a date on it. Let's have something to work towards, and let's see how it goes. And if at any point between now and that date in the middle of September that it becomes obvious that actually having fans in the stadium is not the right thing to do, then we already have a template that works without fans, and we'll just keep going with that until such point as it makes sense to have them back in. So I don't know. It's like we mentioned a bit earlier on that the UK seem to be, despite everything that's going on in the country in relation to the spread of the virus there, it's rampant in a way that it's not here. They are very much gung-ho with pressing ahead with this. And we get to sit back and put our feet up and watch the grim process take place and see exactly what mistakes have been made and see if it works. And then implement our own process out the back of that.
It does kind of feel that we are looking at things differently in this country. It does feel that perhaps we're looking at sport as if a championship goes ahead this winter is certainly a term I've used myself that I've used in conversation with my friends, the whole if sporting events happen. It seems in the UK it's if we can actually watch our team live in the flesh. They seem to be one step ahead of us in terms of taking that risk. I don't think we will be having these conversations that they're having in the London Times this morning for another few months at least. The idea of us talking about face masks in Irish sporting events and 30% to 50% capacities, it does seem that we're a step behind on taking that risk. I'm not saying we're a step behind. I'm just saying in terms of actually being willing to put people in the line of danger.
And we've done that as a nation consistently over the last 4 months. I'm right behind it. Like, you know, the former Taoiseach certainly spoke a lot about looking at the performance of other countries in relation to various different measures. And like, I think there's something fairly prudent about that. Like, it's otherwise it's a bit of a gung-ho, particularly for a country the size of Ireland that won't have the same level of resources due to our numbers as, you know, superpowers like Germany. And like we watched as the US the world watched as Italy made a lot of mistakes. We watched as the US made mistakes, the UK, and like then, you know, well, they're not things we should do. And I think the same applies now as we look to sort of get people back to some sort of level of normality with sport. But I'm happy for us to look and see exactly. Funny, the comments I mentioned from the Irish News from Gavin Devlin about that Tyrone-Donegal match. It was the first time I'd seen the notion of fans being at a GA match at all being mooted. Like, I had assumed we were all working towards November, December and really not having anybody at these games. But he's talking now about let's try and get the game away from Ballybuffet where we could get a bigger crowd in.
It's going to be interesting. Like, it's... I don't know, these things can change quite quickly, I feel, but it definitely feels over the last couple of weeks the mood music has sort of darkened a little bit, and I think everybody here is kind of bracing themselves for what might actually happen with a second wave over the next little while. The second talking point we want to get into, Adrian, is not from the newspapers, it's from Golf Weekly this week, actually. Padraig Harrington, he's been chatting about Bryson DeChambeau, and here is what he had to say about his transformation.
Okay, I am going to let you in. This is your inside track here. I'm going to let you. He has you all fooled. So nobody has done this. So I played the Open at Royal Portrush last year. On the range, there's 3 people. There's a young German kid, skinny little lad, skinny tall lad. He looks probably 6'2" or 3, and he's cracking the ball out on a cold day into the wind on the range at 191 ball speed, and he's in rainwear. So everything is against you hitting at speed. So I'm on the range and I'm looking at this and I'm going, well, that's impressive. And between me and him is Bryson DeChambeau standing on the range. And the kid goads Bryson to have a go. I helped him too because I wanted to see Bryson have a go. So on a cold day with his normal driver in heavy gear, Bryson knocked out 189 ball speed. So that's the equivalent of 190, mid 190s. And even if you put in 5.5 degrees loft, it would easily be 195. So Bryson had the speed. He just wasn't using it. So he hasn't gained any speed. He's basically, you're looking, let's Americanize this. You're looking at a guy who was throwing a curveball at 82 mile an hour, who said somebody goaded him to have a go at a fastball, and he threw a fastball at 92. And he's going, okay, that's not so bad. He's worked on it, and now he's at 95 mile an hour. So he's basically had speed. He's played his whole life working on stability of face. Now he's gone for speed. He's always had it. The bulking up, maybe it makes him a bit more stable. But look, I saw it on the range a year ago before all this happened. Right. He always had it. So the next guy, I tried bulking up for speed. Look,
remember, yeah,
I've done there's nothing that within the rules that has not been tried with me. Put it like this: I've gone fat, I've gone skinny, I've gone speed work, I've done the whole lot. Bryson has that speed in his body. He's just now using it. It is going to change golf. So I've seen this over the years. Up until Rory and DJ in 2011, up onto that, every time we had somebody who was longer, okay, they were definitely undermined. In the amateur game or pro game, the rest of people would say, look, he's missed that fairway because he's a long hitter. He's missed that fairway because he's swinging too hard. Look at him. Every time he hits a bad shot with the driver, we blame speed. Whereas if a short hitter missed the fairway, nobody blames his speed.
Very interesting stuff. It's been very interesting this week listening to Paul McGinley and Padraig Harrington, Adrian, and kind of the taking away from the muscle mass that Bryson DeChambeau has amassed, and it's not even muscle mass, it's just general weight on top of that as well, and how they've actually pointed out that that isn't the key here, that it isn't just about that. So if you're considering getting into the gym, Adrian, to lengthen your drive over the next little while, perhaps reconsider.
Yeah, listen. I will, though, and I'll revisit that thought process. Like Harrington is so bloody fascinating. Like in the first 10 seconds of that clip, he's talking about a memory of like a nondescript German player, like banging one off the tee at 191 club speed, and the recollection of the detail of the recollection that he has about what went on the driving range, like last year, is pretty incredible. And yeah, DeChambeau, obviously, I mean, I'm not a golf aficionado in the way that our golf weekly friends are, but I watched a good bit of the back nine last Sunday night. I watched DeChambeau, and he, 3 shots to go, 3 holes to go, he's 3 shots clear of the field, and he's bombing it off the tee. Like, they're talking about his club head speed, and that he's always had it. Like, once he makes contact with that ball, he's flailing. Like, the club is flailing behind him. His feet are all over the place. He's like taking a step backwards in a way that you see any of us do when we go out for a knock around a golf course, that you're trying to get a bit of extra speed and a bit of extra force behind the ball, and you're all over the place. But he's doing this when he's like 3 shots up with 3 holes to play in a fairly significant golf tournament. I just thought, like, I mean, I know nothing, right? But like, take an iron out, bash it down the fairway, get yourself home, like you're home and hosed here. Just keep it nice and safe. And by the way, it wasn't as if he was hitting like fairways in regulation at that point. He was like wayward as all hell. He was like putting himself in all sorts of trouble. Like, people watch golf nuts watch golf because they love it and they don't really care what happens. But then the vast majority of the rest of the audience is watching because they want to see Tiger Woods win it by 20 shots and like steam ahead of the field, or they want to see somebody implode. And I think that actually, looking at him in any given round, he's got the capacity to do either. So, like, whatever happens, he's going to be, brand DeChambeau on is going to be entertaining for years to come, I would think.
For sure. We just want to touch on the FAI this morning as well. I should mention as well, you can get the full Golf Weekly podcast now on the OTB Sports app. Just one more thing on the FAI. Philip Quinn, back at the Irish Daily Mail this morning, uses the quote, "It's privatisation of football in Ireland by stealth." So this is Fianna Fáil TD Mark McSharry called in his government colleagues last night to reverse the small print of the Memorandum of Understanding, which was obviously signed as part of the financial rescue deal for the FAI. This Memorandum of Understanding is now officially the battleground, it seems, for the next little while. So you've got Catherine Martin and Dara Cleary, who obviously are the ministers with responsibility for sport. Catherine Martin, obviously the minister, and Minister of State is Dara Cleary. They stood by the absolute essential details of the Memorandum of Understanding. It was interesting that while the people on the other side of the fence were preparing a statement last night, the government got out ahead of them to get their statement out to say that it is absolutely essential. But McSharry has essentially broken party ranks. He said, "I'm calling on the government to urgently reverse the situation. In my opinion, it is the privatisation of football in Ireland by stealth," which is the headline. So under the Ross FAI deal, the current 8-4 split and the board will become 6-6 when it becomes from outsiders to insiders, essentially people who've been with the FAI all their lives. In terms of what Martin and Cleary have said, they've noted with alarm recent media reports of FAI infighting at board level as well. And Philip Quinn's got a great piece on the inside of the Irish Daily Mail this morning as well, how it's advantage Barrett in FAI civil war. And one of the things that has been known throughout this entire thing, but it is important to mention again, Adrian, is that a 75% vote is required at the EGM to approve the terms of the MOU, which is a big number and is by no means a gimme. It had seemed that this is something that everybody had taken for granted at the start, but this has changed quite a bit, and the two parties here are at loggerheads to see how the FAI proceeds on an administrative level. It's a huge story, Adrian, and it's hard to know who's actually going to come out on top in this.
Well, like, it's given everything that's happened, obviously, with the FAI over the last number of years, and particularly the last year, and the clean slate that we were all assuming that we were heading into, like, doesn't any longer seem to be the case. And like, part of the difficulty is we don't know. Like, the FAI are not actually managing the message in a way that they should be at the minute. We're not really that sure what's going on behind the scenes. We're not really that sure what the plan, which is the essence at this point, is for the League of Ireland. Like, where is the money going to come from? How are they going to manage? How are they going to see the clubs through? There's been a lot of somewhat baked ideas been put out there that I'm not sure how sustainable they are. I don't know how road tested they've been. It seems like, if you believe everything that's been coming out of the ministers last night and today, that like the FAI could be in danger of missing out on 19 million quid of the 32 million that were given as part of a rescue package if they don't make some tweaks to you make whatever tweaks are required to secure the future of the association and secure the future of the League of Ireland, I would have assumed. And if there are reasons why that's not possible, let's hear them. I do think they're not managing the message particularly well. And I think that people are now concerned about the FAI in a way, as I said, that we all hoped was going to be a thing of the past.
Yeah, we should say all GA activities as well, to finish up on another story. A number of GA activities at a Cork club, which you've been mentioning, Adrian, have been suspended due to a potential coronavirus case. So you got players from the clubs in the Carbery division. They've been reported to have come into contact with a person who has since tested positive. Now, in a statement on their Facebook page, Argentine Rangers have confirmed they are one of the clubs. So it's the big detail this morning, and has stopped all activity until Saturday at the earliest. That's right. All GA activity at a number of Cork clubs have been suspended. So this is the murky waters that people are going to find themselves in over the next little while if players test positive for coronavirus, and the sheer depth of clubs around the country and the challenge matches that are underway, the challenge matches that have been played, adds a whole other layer of complication to this. That, like, if one player tests positive from a club, who is to say that the players that face that team in a challenge match are now safe? Like, I mean, like, should we be entering a place now where the next step is coming back to last week's conversation, mandatory temperature checks, the safety of the player, the actually ensuring that there isn't going to be transmission on the field of play? That's suddenly, like, I mean, it was always the priority, but looking at a story like this, it is heightened in its importance. It shows that the cases are real. These things will happen over the next few weeks.
The one commonality of this entire thing is that we don't know, right? Like with coronavirus, there was more information from scientists this week about how airborne this thing might actually be, right? Which changes the game entirely. And there isn't anybody sitting in judgment about a further more communication about, more developments, or we've had different advice and so we're going to change things slightly to reflect whatever. Like, I think that there's a slight lack of clarity, obviously, in relation to exactly what clubs, and in a few weeks' time, or more than a few weeks' time, how counties should respond to it. Like, the entire dynamic around this thing changes constantly. The information around it changes constantly. I'd like to hear more from, like, could we have regular, now that we're in a position that GA teams are back, back training, back playing challenge matches. The Dublin Hurling Championship, Club Championship starts next week, as a lot of the championships will. Could we have more regular updates from Croke Park, for example, in this instance, about, even if it's a case of, this week's update is that there's not much to say. We had a couple of cases in Cork. We're talking to the clubs. We're trying to figure our way through it. Like, it's important that we, I think, over-communicate now, rather than shut down, and rather than say, well, we made our decision on that, and we're going to stick with that, which they haven't done. To be fair, they've been good about saying that was the information at that time, and now we're changing that. But I would like to hear more of a flow of communication around this one.